starts with an idea, the desire to create, to solve, to play, to share, to interact. Together we can build new worlds. Freedom to create for all. Creativity lies in all of us. That's what makes us human. It starts with an idea, desire to create, to solve, to play, to share, to interact. Together we can build new worlds. Freedom to create for all.
Namaste. Good evening, everyone. I would like to invite you all to our today's exclusive session in partnership with Epic Games. So, Epic Games and Asifa India are proud to announce the Unreal Women Creators Program, Future of VFX Production. So, I would like to quickly introduce myself and Asifa India. So my name is Sivakumar, and I'm one of the volunteer with Asifa India. And again, we have some of our core committee members, Mr. Bill Dennis, Ms. Vani Saraswathi, Sesha Prasad, Sanjay, Kimsara, Ramakrishna, and Mr. Vinod. So we all are the core committee members, and I would like to also thank all our coordinators and city evangelists who has been helping us to make Asifa India and Asifa India events successful. And Asifa India's mission is to promote opportunities for artists in animation all around the world. And Asifa India is a part of Asifa International, and we have chapters in about 42 countries across the globe. And recently, Asifa India has celebrated 20th year anniversary, and we are very excited about all the upcoming programs. Now, I would like to introduce Shruti from Epic Games, and I would like Shruti to do the introductions of the panel members and take this forward.
Thank you, Shiva. Good evening, everyone. I'm Shruti Varma. I'm the Regional Marketing Director for Epic Games for India and Southeast Asia. Thank you so much for joining the webinar tonight. At Epic, we want to empower everyone to create and share compelling real-time 3D content and experiences, and we are excited by the limitless possibilities that immersive and interactive technology brings to all aspects of commerce and creativity. Having said that, the VFX industry has always been that connecting bridge where creativity meets technology, and over here, women creators play a essential role. So today, we are joined by eminent personalities who are truly the trailblazers in this industry. In the next 45 minutes, I would take this opportunity to, drive some conversations on behalf of all of us with with our panelists to, discuss and know more about their career journey, their views on virtual production, and also the creative programs that they have been part of and they support as an industry initiative, which accelerate a woman's career in the industry. So without further ado, let me introduce Jackie, who's the co-founder of Edge Visual Studios. She has been creating high-end imagery for movies, TV commercials, music videos, and live events for decades. And Jacqueline has also worked for world's top studios, such as ILM, Digital Domain, and MPC, and she's been part of many blockbusters like Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, Tron, and Jurassic World, and just to name a few. So we are really happy to have Jackie joining us all the way from LA. It's really early in the morning for her. Thank you so much, Jackie, for joining us. Our next panelist is Charuvi Agrawal. She's an avant-garde multimedia artist, best known for technological enabled large-scale physical artworks, animated short films, TV shows, and immersive experiences in AR and VR. Um, she is her 26,000 Bells of Light is a traveling exhibition that includes 25 feet interactive bell installation, numerous mythologically inspired figurines, paintings, augmented reality installation, and a hand-painted covered, which has been showcased at various Indian metros. So that's an interesting art, traveling art exhibition that you can you can see when when the world opens up, and hope the installations come back again. And she has early this year her animated epic series, The Legend of Hanuman, produced by Graphic India, and which was inspired by her film Sri Hanuman Chalisa, was globally premiered on Disney Plus Hotstar. The series has been applauded for its incredible visual design and animation. She's also been honored twice at Limca Books of World Records. And at the age of 23, she was facilitated at Incredible India at 60 Festival in New York as well. Thank you, Charuvi, for joining us. And the next panelist that I would like to introduce you to is Marta. Marta has started her career as a lighting artist in Spain, and then she moved to London, where she gradually moved from lighting to texturing. At the moment, she jumps between all the three specialities. After working at MPC as a texture artist for The Lion King and the one and only Ivan, she took a break and she moved back to Spain, where she now teaches at La Salle University. She was also part of the Unreal Engine Fellowship in virtual production for the summer batch of 2020 fellowship. And from there, it has inspired her to develop more projects on Unreal at the university. And then we have Vani, and I'm sure most of you know Vani already. She needs no introduction. Vani is a creative producer and director. She has founded Dancing Atoms, which is a home for creators to develop animation and live action content. Dancing Atoms works with a team of writers, art directors, and talented creatives based in Mumbai, London, and Los Angeles. She has also been the head of creative management from DreamWorks Animation in Shanghai, and also as an executive director of Rhythm and News Asia. And she was also one of the first Indian woman to be part of the Unreal Fellowship program in fall of 2020, and we're really excited to have all of them on board with us for our panel discussion. Shiva, on this cue, may I request you to play the video reels of all the panelists on what they've worked on.
Sure, Shruti.
Thank you. We can't see your screen yet.
Yeah. So we just played the teasers, Shruti. When it is required, you can let us know. Maybe in the end, we can play the full films for everyone to watch.
Yes, I think there's some issue with the video output. We're not able. It's coming very choppy for me. I'm not sure if it's the same for everybody. So okay, that's part of our webinar, online virtual summits. So no worries. Let's dive right into our conversation. Hello, everybody again, and I would love to know from all of you on the panel, where if you could share some snippets about describing your career journey. How did you get here? How's your journey been? What's been your high point and low point? Why don't we start with Jackie?
Hello, everybody. Yeah, in LA here, it's about 6 a.m. So yeah, got the morning tea going. So yeah, I guess I started out, well, I went to film school, and when I cut out, all I knew I wanted to do something in film. And I came down to Los Angeles, and I ended up in post-production. That the first job that I got, actually, well, this is maybe an interesting story, so I'll take a minute to tell it. So I was doing a job interview, and it turned out to be at a visual effects house, and they were showing all of this really cool, like a dinosaur walking, and I was like, if I do nothing else in my whole life, this is what I want to do. And after they showed the demo, I snuck up to a woman who was a saleswoman there, and I said, I don't suppose you guys have any internships available. And she said, okay, let's talk. So she took my information, I took hers, and I started as a runner for her, bringing sales bags for the post-production house to all over Los Angeles. So I was like going to Warner Brothers and, you know, Disney, and I was bringing in, you know, these little sales bags. And, you know, during the night, I was furiously learning the programs, because I knew a little bit, but I definitely, you know, I knew a little Photoshop, but I definitely didn't know, you know, the programs that they were using. I didn't know Flame and that sort of thing. So I was furiously at night learning, and slowly I got to doing some paint and roto, and then over time I started doing some compositing and a bit of 3D, and then eventually I left there and I started mostly compositing, because those were the jobs that were available. And then I ended up sort of specializing in compositing for quite a long time. I remember when, as you were saying, a low point for me was when I lost my first job. And I remember feeling like, oh, I'll never get a job again, and all of this stuff. And I spent the entire month or two worrying about this. And then I got a job like pretty quickly, you know, like 6 weeks afterwards. And I was like, why did I spend all of those 6 weeks worrying when I could have been like enjoying myself? And the more experience I got, the less I had to really worry about finding jobs. And you know, I think the more experience you get and the more people you know, it's a little bit easier to get jobs. So I'm less worried these days. But during my journey, I wanted to do some traveling. So I went to Industrial Light and Magic in San Francisco, and then I went to, at one point I was in London, and I worked at Moving Picture Company as well. So yeah, I've been in that same area doing compositing. And that's where I worked on Harry Potter, actually, and actually where I met my British husband. So now he lives in LA with me. He's my British souvenir. And yeah, so doing visual effects, yeah, it's had some really beautiful moments to it for me. And let's see, I had 2 kids, and I actually started working remotely before it was cool to work remotely. So I started working with Tau Films, which is a fantastic place. And actually I was working with people in Hyderabad and Kuala Lumpur, and so I was kind of like waking up really early and waking up, you know, and staying up really late just to have meetings, you know, so that we could all talk to each other and pass our notes of the day off to each other, which was really interesting. But yeah, I mean, I was really honored to be a part of the Epic Fellowship in the summer, and it really, you know, I've had a few changes in my career. Like I started getting into VR, and I was doing VR for 5 years or something like that. But something about Unreal just really excited me. Like it was like it gave the opportunity for everybody to be a storyteller, and it just got me so excited that I was like, this is what I want to keep doing. Like I mean, I will obviously do Nuke, but I really want to keep working on storytelling and becoming an entrepreneur and all sorts of things like that. So it kind of changed things for me. So I'm really excited to have everybody here, because I feel like, you know, it could shift the way that you guys see, you know, your career going. So anyway.
Great. That's an interesting story, Jackie. Thank you so much. You've had an interesting journey, and I'll come back to you with some follow-up questions later on. But moving on, Martha, we would love to hear about your story.
Hello. So I kind of like went into computer graphics as an accident. When I finished high school, I applied for fine arts in Barcelona, and I was accepted, but there was an administrative error So I couldn't join for a year. So I had a gap year. And when I was wondering what to do, I saw there was a computer graphics course for a year. So I joined. And this is the 1998, something like that. So it was very early days. So then I finished this course, got to study fine arts, and then I started working as a graphic designer, but it's not really my thing. So I took some time to travel, and I went to Canada. And when I was in Canada, I was working in a restaurant, and one of the clients was an art director for an animation company in Toronto. So we started talking, and I told him about my course, and kind of like he helped me to understand how to get into the industry and what I had to do. And he also helped me with some applying for a postgraduate program. So I ended studying a postgraduate program at Seneca College in Toronto, and then I went back to Spain. And
I'm sorry,
I
excuse
started-
me, Martha.
Yeah.
Would you be able to keep your microphone a little close by? Thank you.
Yeah, 1 second. I think it's okay. So oh yeah, so then I went back to Spain and I started working in a movie as a lighting artist. And then when I finished that movie, I moved to London. And I was in London for a lot of years, working in advertisement, film and commercials. And so the first job that I got in a film was for Star Trek. And I joined the company, and my contract was for like 4 months. But during 2 months, there was no work for me to do because they were delayed. So I was going to work every day with nothing to do. So I decided to learn texturing and look development. And then at some point they were like, well, you know, now that you are learning, why don't you do some texturing and look for the movie? So I said, yeah, fine, sure. So I ended on the lighting for like a month or so. And then after that, Jellyfish called me and said, oh, we know you can do texturing and look, why don't you join us? And then MPC. So it kind of like moved slowly from lighting into texturing and look dev. And then at the end in MPC, I was working in the Lion King and the One and Only Ivan. And I took a break to see, you know, VFX very intense. So I decided to take a break and think a little bit what I wanted to do next. So I came to Barcelona to start to teach at university. And the university was a lot of talk about real time. And so when the fellowship was, the application was ready, I thought, well, no, because I didn't really know what it was to real time and what it implied to not rendering. Like for me, that sounded really strange. So yeah, I joined and it was great. And I think it was an amazing opportunity to understand where VFX is going and how to do things in a different way and to understand a different way of working. So that was it.
Thank you. So, Charuvi, why don't we hear your story? What were your high and lows and your journey been?
Sure, Shruti. First of all, it's fabulous to be, sharing this platform with fellow women creators. I think it's really exciting to hear their stories. Starting with mine, I actually started as an artist right from the school, and I got into an undergrad program at Delhi College of Art for fine art painting. I was always a fine artist by heart. And, post graduating, there was always a conflict that, how do I animate these static imageries, these static paintings? Because there's so much of story that has to be told. So that's where I wanted to migrate into animation. In fact, in the year 2006, I had my first dual exhibition, and I left my exhibition and went to Canada to do animation. Because that urge that, okay, I can't limit myself with static, imagery at all. It has to move beyond that. So I went to Canada, did my postgrad in computer animation at Sheridan, and it was a year's program, post which I started working I actually worked with the National Film Board of Canada. So there were certain set of experimental animations that we did, and it was quite, I would say, benefiting because there's a lot of exposure that I got from there. Because Canada is known to host a lot of animation festivals. So that's where I got my maximum exposure. And following that, I was recruited by Red Rover Studios as a texturing artist for a television show. And unfortunately, there was a sad demise of the co-founder, because of which the company had to go under bankruptcy. And my work permit was kind of connected with the studio. So thereafter, the only solution I had was to migrate back to India. And but at the same time, I, as a filmmaker, was making a lot of short films, and one of the films was selected at SIGGRAPH. So the experience at SIGGRAPH Festival was quite rewarding. You know, as a student going to a festival of that kind, that nature. So from there, I got the confidence that I should be having my own studio, and rather than creating, providing service to a studio, I should be creating my own content, my own IP. And from that energy, I came back to India in 2008, started my company in 2009. And that was a completely different ball game, because when you're wearing an entrepreneur's hat, the kind of challenges which are right there, it's like a plethora of challenges right across you, right from human resource to having infrastructure, IT issues, counseling your staff, recruiting, getting more clients on board. So yeah, for me, all of a sudden, from an artist, I became a businesswoman, and that was a huge learning curve for me. But interestingly, when my company was started, I was commissioned to create a film, which was on Hanuman Chalisa. And for my fellow filmmakers right here, Hanuman Chalisa is basically a chant. It's a chant which is sung by millions of Hindus. So, as a filmmaker, you're always wanting to stay away from mythology, because you want the creative freedom, that you want to connect, you want to explore, you want the freedom to, create. But when you are stepping into the religious domain, it's a very fine line. You have to be very sensitive of what you're creating. So initially I was adverse to the idea of taking up the project, but then I took up the project thinking that, okay, let this be a challenge. I spent a year, and the producer kind of vanished from the project completely, leaving that 1 year worth of research, asset, production, everything right in front of me. And after that, I was like, I'm not letting it go, because I've already invested a complete year into this project. And then I thought, let me finish the project, let me go with full force. And I just went ahead, spent another 2 years of my life in the same project. And just to realize the fact that that particular film is 13 minutes long. But that 13 minutes long film had about, some crazy assets and crazy scenes. Met my husband, who was he's into marketing, he's into developing strategies. I met him and I was like, okay, look, I have a film which is about 13 minutes long. What do I do with the film now? I've completed the film. I have no idea what to do with the film. I know as a filmmaker, you can apply to film festivals, but how do you salvage it further on? It, of course, becomes a portfolio. But the good thing was the film became such a good portfolio that it went to various film festivals, won a lot of awards. It got us a lot of work. And at the same time, my husband gave the idea of creating this into an exhibition, a traveling exhibition. He said, nobody's going to come for 30 minutes film. This is back in 2013. Unlike NFP, which promotes short films, we do not have such organization in India that promotes animation, or rather funds animation. There is no subsidiary for funding animation. So there was this huge issue right there. And I was like, okay, exhibition is a great idea. And that became one of the best things I've ever done, because it was so exciting. Because, as an artist, I was sculpting a sculpture which was 25 feet in height, and it was technologically enabled. So from AR to 3D printed characters, from merchandise, we had everything right there. And that became a huge success in a way because everybody was wanting to see it. There was a lot of footfall for those exhibitions. And from there, the journey went to a different direction. We got into a service model. I worked with Muzaffar Ali on his feature film for visual effects. That gave another experience to me because I always wanted to do visual effects. From there, we did work for Turner. We did a lot of idents. We worked for Red Cross, various organizations, both private and government. And now what we are doing presently is very recently we did few holograms for Gandhi Smriti Museum. We are doing a lot of museum-oriented films which are on historical figures for the Indian ministry. One is in Punjab, one is in Uttar Pradesh. So that's very exciting because we are exploring Unreal Engine in these projects. And along with that, we are doing our own IP, having said that. And also we were working on Legend of Hanuman, the TV series, which was quite fruitful and quite exciting. And having to said so about the highs and lows, I have a few to share. One of them happens to be, the highs is of course, when you're creating your IP, you're always looking out for appreciation. The moment you get those appreciation, those heartfelt fan meals, it just pays off. It's just so gratifying. And of course, I, as a creative individual, I love creative challenges. I love to, find solutions of creative problems. And the whole creative control that you get. So that's one of the highs. The lows would be, of course, Indian clientage is very different. The exposure is very limited when it comes to animation. So half of the time you are making them understand what animation is all about, unlike the clients from the West. So that's always a problem. And because we are in a very technology-driven medium, you're constantly updating your hardware, you're constantly investing in software. And the other low would be, retaining your talent. So that's one thing which I would say is a low for me because, how do you retain your talent? And how do you motivate them? How do you make them grow? So, which is a challenge, I would say, but yeah, so basically that.
Really great. It's very inspiring. Vani, now to you.
Let's see. First of all, I want to say it's so exciting. I was going through all the names of all the participants and I was like, yay! So I'm super excited and super thrilled to be invited to this panel, Shruti. Thanks to Asifa, thanks to Epic Games and Unreal and lovely people over here and the participants and the volunteers. I felt as a young girl growing up that I always was someone who wanted to break barriers. Like that's how my mother would box me. And she said, you tell Vani to do something, she's going to challenge you and do more. Fun fact, my father, who was a banker, decided sometime in 1984 that he wanted to make animated films. And he sold my mom's jewelry and sold some property and hired a bunch of artists and wanted to take Hanuman to the world. And so he went to Annecy back then with a lot of the Indian mythological characters. And I think he was the first Indian to probably go there. And I still have pictures of him with all this beautiful art. And I was too young to know what any of that was, but I saw the light in his eyes. Like I still see the light in his eyes, like that childlike spark, like that's gonna happen and this is gonna happen. And I was like, oh my God, like look at how happy dad is, can I be like, I don't even think I ever thought of that until now when I look back in my life. And it's that childlike enthusiasm that he always carried in him. So animation happened at a very, very young age when my dad told me and my brother not to go to school. So he said, you don't have to go to school or get any education. You just need to watch some great films. You need to understand storytelling and you need to understand what animation is all about. So we were not very well off, and we spent all our little money on renting a VCR and watching Dumbo and Jungle Book on and on and on VHS tapes. So that's my education, was really my father and my mother, who showed us that go after the things that you love, because you'll be happy forever. And that's something that that I want to share with everybody here. Being a woman or a young girl back then, not super good at education, of course, but I wanted to create. I knew I wanted to create. I knew I wanted to direct. And so when I went out and knocked on a couple of doors in Chennai at some film studios, I was told that my safety was not guaranteed. Like they couldn't guarantee my safety. And so they said, I don't think you should be working on a movie set. You should go find something else to do. And the closest was what my brother told me back then was, hey, you know what? Like, do you know that there's this thing called visual effects, which kind of lets you be part of the movies, but also part of technology. So creativity and technology. And I'm so thankful for him to kind of bring me into that space, because I didn't know that existed. So that basically is my journey. Every step that I took, there were people that supported me and there were people that did not support me. And I think that was the best part. Like when I look back today, and I really thank all the people that didn't support me, because there was this bigger fire, like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to show it to you and I'm going to be like the best. So I would say that as much as it is a low, I think it's also the biggest high. That if you look at it and plan forward, it's the best thing. Rest after that is basically me doing a lot of Bollywood films and, being a part of the visual effects industry in Bollywood back then. And then was very fortunate to have met the folks at Rhythm and Hues, which was also a fantastic experience. I got to start Rhythm and Hues from my apartment in Bombay with 3 people, growing it into 4 studios, 1 in Bombay, 1 in Hyderabad, 1 in Malaysia, 1 in Taiwan, managing over 700 people. So someone that never managed anybody was now asked to manage people. And the big thing that I learned was people don't like to be managed. And that's basically the truth. So the best thing to be a manager is not to manage people and let them manage themselves. And it worked magic. It worked wonders because you gave them trust and you gave them transparency. So many great lessons, so many great people that I got to work with from all over the world, I must say. Obviously, we won a couple of Academy Awards while we were in India, and with a lot of young talent, we were able to train them and prove it that if you trust in them and if you care in them, and you gave them the right set of tools, creativity is unlimited. I believe personally that talent is universal, and that's it. I mean, it's not male, female. There are no boundaries to talent and creativity. Lows, I think losing my dad very young was one of the things that's still hurts, but I'm working. So I quit my job at DreamWorks and decided, like, you know what, I'm going to go live my dad's dreams for a bit. And for the last 6 years, I've been making films and just investing my entire time and energy into creating IP, kind of bringing life to his stories and his concepts. So it's a high and a low both. About Unreal, I just want to quickly say last year, I was approached to kind of take on this fellowship. And I was like, I don't want it. I don't want this. This is not for me. I'm not a technical person. I'm like a camera person. This is what I want to do. I like telling people what to do, but I don't like doing it. And that's basically what happened. And and Shruti basically said, no, you have to do it. You have to do it for a bigger cause. And now I see it, yeah, I mean, if anybody watches my Unreal short, you'll understand that if you stop worrying, you'll start creating. And it somehow magically happened for me, where I was so nervous. When I left that nervous energy, it was just creativity flowing. So that's my 2 stories.
Really cool. So I think, there's a common thread between all 4 of you, right? Where it's all about constant learning and constant, the urge to do something new and to break those barriers again and again. And I think that's what makes the industry more inclusive and more happening at the same time, because it doesn't allow us to stay in the boundaries that are predetermined from before. That's fantastic. So, leading on to from here, I want to go around with another follow-up question is, who have been those, who are those people in your lives who have, especially in your career, who have helped you grow into the leadership roles? I know Vani's inspiration is her father, but for all of you, who's been, how important is mentorship in a career, in your career growth? And do you think that it has to play an important role even for everybody who's attending this webinar right now?
So can you hear me okay now? Yeah. So in my case, I think in my generation, everybody wanted to have a lawyer, a doctor, or an engineer in the family. So artists were this gray line where say you're not going to make a living, they will worry, what are you going to say being a woman, no. But it's something I saw when a child is creative, you can't stop it. And part of my family are like art teachers and painters and stuff. And I saw my grandmother was very like, well, they don't do what they want to do, So I think definitely my grandmother was a supporter, and my family was quite open to my uncles and aunties to,
Martha, we can't hear you well. I'm sorry, we can't hear you well.
No?
It's still low.
I don't think. Weird. Can you hear me now?
Little better.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know what is it. Anyway, so I think family support is probably the best mentorship. After that, you have teachers, you have people in the career, but I think if your family supports you, for me, I think is the best thing that you can get.
I was gonna say, my dad did not support me becoming an artist. He definitely thought like you could have that as a hobby, and you can, you can never make any money as an artist, was the kind of thing that he said. Like if you become a physicist or a doctor, he was a nuclear physicist, so it was like if you become a scientist, then you can have a hobby on the side, kind of thing. And so he wasn't very supportive, but I didn't want to become a scientist, and I wasn't very good at it either. So, so actually, I was undeclared in college for several years before I decided, no, I'm just gonna major in film. And some of the greatest support that I've gotten, actually, in my first job, there was a girl who was my age, but she had just been studying visual effects for years, and so she kind of helped champion me a little bit at the very beginning, as well as the woman who, like, it was like I did get some woman support at the very beginning, and that was lovely. Like the sales woman who needed help, she took me under her wing and gave me gave me that first internship. And then from there, I got some mentorship at Digital Domain. I was there for like 6-7 years, and I have some really good friends there who, we continue to speak and continue to, like they continue to help me actually after all this time. But you know, just the friends you make along the journey, you know, the relationships you build, they're valuable. You know, like it's really great to meet people and keep them as proper friends, but then, you know, like, you know, they will help you, and those relationships, you know, are really important. So yeah.
That's so true. It's the relationships that matter and carry on everywhere in our career. Charuvi?
Yeah, Shruti. So in my case, my parents were the biggest supporters. I loved our weekends together as a child because my father would come up with such fabulous and interesting ideas to do things together. So they are not trained artists, my mother and father, but they were very passionate about art. So, you know, my father will think about, you know, let's do something with soap. And we would, you know, be carving a soap and creating interesting objects out of soap. So he'll think of such interesting ideas, and every weekend we would spend time together. So he was the one who really pushed me into arts, but as a hobby, not really as a profession, for sure. I still remember in school, I was asked to take PCM, which is, you know, physics, chemistry, maths. And I wasn't too great in academics, but then eventually I did, you know, get good at it. But maths really freaked me out. I did not know that I'll be dealing with a programmer eventually. I did not, you know, perceive that. But so my father, he's into civil service, was into civil service, and he was into a traveling job. So I still remember he was posted in Kashmir, Srinagar during the Kargil War. And I left maths without informing him, and went into home science. And you know, the combination was such which would not really, you know, let me choose any other option than fine arts eventually. So he took it well. He was really concerned as to what's really going to happen with my daughter. Should she be a housewife? Because that's the only solution which, you know, comes across, that, you know, if you don't have this, you don't have math, you can't be an architect, you can't be this. Maybe she's going to be a housewife, perhaps. But then I chose arts, fine arts, got into Delhi College of Art, which was great. And once I got a gold medal in Delhi College of Art, that's what endorsed the idea that whatever I'm doing is correct. Because I think as parents in India, they require that kind of, you know, support. Because support in the sense that, you know, whatever their daughters are doing is correct in some manner or the other. Either they have strong faith, which they did, but of course they were worried about, you know, what will be the income eventually, what will be the source of income, what's the profession she's actually going to choose for. So so thankfully it all worked out, and since then they have been the biggest support in my life.
Awesome. Vani?
I think almost everyone. Like, I can't really pick one person more than the other. But basically, I would like to say that, you know, from early childhood, my father, then my brother, then the people that I worked with who kind of said yes sometimes and who kind of, you know, kind of put me down a lot. All those people, I think I want to give credit to them for inspiring me to do what I am. And of course, my husband, you know, who's been like solid supporting me all the time. John Hughes, you know, who I worked with at Rhythm and Hughes, and you know, like his whole idea was very simple. Like, I'm going to trust you, you do what you need to do. And that's that. And I think to find that kind of people is in some way fantastic, because that when you find good people, you really value that much more, so you can kind of pay forward, you know. And I think that was fantastic. And there have been some really not so cool people, you know. But when I look back today and I say, oh my God, like, if that person didn't challenge me, I think I would have been very complacent sitting where I was 5 years ago. So inspiring people are definitely first is family, and then all the colleagues and friends that I've had at Rhythm and Hughes and at other places, for sure.
Great. Moving on to the topic of virtual production, all of you have gone through your own, your own experiences of virtual production and with the experience of it. In your views, is virtual production here to stay, or is it a hype? What do you think?
I think it's here to stay. I think everything is here to stay, especially virtual production, you know, with today's time and the way that COVID has happened. And also having worked at Rhythm and Hues, you know, having run 4 different satellite studios and 2 in Los Angeles and Vancouver, it was very easy to move things around. If you like know how to move things, it's easy to move things. So I personally feel like virtual production is a game changer.
Great.
Yeah, totally.
I agree.
Who wants the Martha? You can continue. You were saying something.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think the way that the speed and the possibilities and the flexibility that has brought to the VFX industry are incredible. And also everything is much more together. Like before you had like departments and then everything came together at the end. Now everything comes together at the same time, which is great.
Yeah, Shruti. So virtual production is definitely here to stay. And as Vani has very rightly said, it's a game changer. I mean, the ease of, communicating, having a good workflow management, cloud system, all of this has really enabled a better module to work. And, even if it comes to client meetings, the amount of time that one has started saving with virtual production, whether you are communicating with a client, those physical, the physical interaction, the requirement, the time invested in that has been supremely reduced. So it's definitely here to stay.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's here to stay as well, because as a creator, you used to like take a camera, you used to shoot it on a green screen, and then you'd say, okay, the visual effects house is going to take it and I'll see my results in 2 months, But now you can key it out, show the background, previs the whole thing out, have an edit in a few days, make changes, send off all the data for, to do like final high-end work. I mean, it just allows the directors to be directors, and it allows you to get information much more quickly. And I just think that the money saved and it's so much cheaper and so much easier to render in Unreal than it is to do it in traditional like Redshift or that sort of thing. And so I just think that especially as processors get better and as all of these programs are coming out to help support the infrastructure, I think it's definitely here to stay.
Yeah, and even just to add to that, even various departments have converged. No longer you really require storyboarding or getting into details of productions, because things have become so fast managed. The workability, the efficiency. So that has really smoothened the process. It's all about imparting the knowledge, because that's what I feel, which there's a gap when it comes to imparting education about virtual production. That has to become more mainstream.
No, you're right. It's the education and the adoption of it amongst the community. And while all of you say that it is here to stay, but what are the bottlenecks that you see that for that widespread adoption? Is it the availability of infrastructure? Obviously, there's talent, but what are those bottlenecks as per you that all of us as an industry need to overcome and help each other?
I think one of the things that, having done the Unreal Fellowship program last year, I think the language and the technical terms are a big challenge, because we are so used to working in a particular way, when you go on a movie set, you know what those terms are, you know who's doing what. So I would say that literally it's almost like learning a new language with Unreal. Like, okay, what does this really mean? Oh, but this means that in animation, but no, this is a different thing here, but it's exactly that, you know? So it's the new language, because Unreal basically came from gaming. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of those verbs that I'm not a gamer, that I don't understand that. So there's that, but that's not too difficult. The other thing is, a lot of people don't have access to virtual production. You know, like we talk about LED lights, or we talk about LED screens and stuff like that. And it's not common for me to go pick that. You know, it's not like I can put a green cloth behind me and I can do my chroma shoot. So those are the things that I think, as time progresses, the LED screens were so expensive 4 years ago. Now they're not as expensive. And as you move 3 years down the line, things are constantly changing. So pricing is another thing, in terms of like, where is this technology going? How much should I invest it in today? Because it's constantly evolving and changing. It's not like what it was, where you had machines for 30 years that you know that that's the machine and that's the software. But with Unreal, it's constantly evolving, it's constantly changing. So I feel like those could be both good and bad, but those are something that people need to read about a little bit to get their hands, happy hands, I want to call it.
So there's definitely a huge learning curve to Unreal Engine for sure, and a major investment in machines infrastructure, because the better the machines are, the better the graphic card is, you have better support of Unreal Engine, the better is the performance. And besides that, I feel it's the integration where the bottleneck is a bit, because, you know, coming from a background in Maya, even though Unreal is really rapidly evolving, I mean, they're coming up with skin shaders and humans and rigs, everything. But even then, you know, at this point of time, we are following a pipeline where we are taking every asset from Maya to Unreal Engine. So that integration support, you know, where the scaling goes haywire, all of that. So that's one thing where we struggle at this point of time. But I'm sure with the way it's evolving, that would be, you know, something in history. So yeah, basically that.
Cool. Jackie.
Yeah, I mean, one thing, and I'll give you guys all a tip before you begin the program. I would learn as much as you can about the sequencer as fast as you can. You know, just because you can do everything with it doesn't mean you necessarily should, as I've learned the hard way a few times. And so, you know, we need to sort of work on how, as a filmmaking tool, certain aspects like the sequencer work, you know, like just, you know, like how you organize everything, how you label everything, how you know, because it can make, as I learned, an hour-long project become quite confusing. And so, you know, I definitely think, and then like, you know, how to set up Perforce in the cloud so that, you know, everyone is linked to each other, and, you know, all of these things I think just need a little bit more attention and a little more work. But I think, you know, as machines get faster, you know, the prices of things will go down, and you know, the prices hopefully of LED walls will go down. And so, yeah, it's just going to be constantly evolving, I think.
Cool. Martha.
Yeah, I agree. I think finding and teaching the talent is definitely one thing, and also the lead is another thing. Like, I think the infrastructure is part of it. So I agree with what everybody was saying about talent, infrastructure, and definitely the sequencer.
Okay, that's a point. I surely have a couple of our evangelists on the webinar attending right now, so I'm sure all of us are taking notes on this, and that's cool. And you know, moving on, we are now we just have another 5-10 minutes for the panel discussion, but I would now, would love to talk more about uh, in your whole career span, have you engaged with any women-specific creator programs or training programs that you've been part of um, otherwise? And what are the strengths that such programs? What's the impact of those programs on you personally? If you could, just talk to us more about that.
So I want to say that, when someone invests in you, it feels very magical. Because you suddenly start to feel special. Now, whether that's a 1-hour investment, teaching you how to manage people, or if it is a class about anything, technology, art, or whatever, mentoring is something very important, I personally feel. So when I was at Rhythm and Hues, I remember at a very early stage, when we were recruiting people, we were 7 people at that point, and we realized that all the 7 were, like men. And very quickly I said, this is not going to work, because I want that 50-50 balance very early on from the beginning. So even though we didn't have women that were as experienced or as talented as the men that we hired, we invested in them. We brought in women at a very young, we said, you know what, just come in, stay, you'll get paid the same amount of money. There's not going to be any differentiation, but you got to prove yourself. There's no other way, but they have to prove themselves. You can create an opportunity, but so I personally believe, and they didn't work out, a lot of times they didn't get up to the bar that we put for them, but we kept on. We didn't give up. We said, all right, you know what, we gave you 1 year of this time, you haven't made it, we'll give you 6 months more. And it's amazing that I want to say that today, a lot of the women that we invested in back then are leads, are like top level managers, and are, I think, giving back in so many ways. So it's just, someone has to take that first initiative and trust and say, all right, I'm going to put a little investment here, and this investment is going to multiply itself. So I believe that is a very key thing. Today, the studio that I work with called Dancing Atoms, I do the same thing. I have about 6 women writers and artists and illustrators at different levels. And I continue to do that. I may not be the best, but like I always try and say, like, okay, I need to keep this balance in training, not just men, but also women. So we have about 14 people that are working with us, both men and women, and it's an investment. I don't think mentoring is for others, I personally feel like mentoring is for me, because I want to become better at who I am. And I can only get better by opening myself, sharing, and then observing how they do the same thing differently. And there's such a great learning that I receive in return, because something that I didn't think about, they've thought about it. And that just adds so much value to the content that I'm creating, that I'm like, oh my God, this is great. So it's a very two-way thing, the mentor-mentee relationship. So yes, I mean, we're doing it all the time, but just more consciously, I guess.
Jackie?
Yeah, I mean, my father used to tell me that you know something properly when you're able to teach it to others. And so actually, I'm a teacher right now at John Hughes University at the One Academy. And so I'm teaching Nuke there at the moment. And there's probably equal men and women, which is really exciting. And yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily focus only on the women, but I definitely try and give them, you know, the opportunity that they can reach out to me at any time, you know, email me their work. And, you know, they're doing really well, and it's very exciting. And then on the other side of that, I wanted to mention that the Visual Effects Society has a program where you can sign up to be a mentor or a mentee. And I thought, I wonder if there's any way that I could get a little help working on some on-set visual effects supervision, which is something that I've found as a bit of a barrier to entry for myself. And I found someone, and so she's mentoring me, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to give back as a mentee at some point as well. But I think all of us helping each other and being willing to teach and willing to grow and willing to learn and also accept guidance, you know, as it becomes available, I think is really important. So, yeah.
And that's great. Marta.
So I think we have to acknowledge that there is an imbalance in the industry, and this is very important. And I've seen a shift in the last years, like 5-6 years, trying to get more women into the industry. And this panel is an example, and this fellowship is an example. And I think we have a duty to this opening more to diversity in the workplaces. So yeah, like I think it's happening, and it's the beginning now.
Charuvi, your
So
views.
yeah, Shruti. So there's definitely a major imbalance when it comes to the, you know, the proportion of men and women. Even in my studio, we have a staff of 60 people at this point of time, and I barely have 4 women in my entire staff. So even though I'm very actively looking for women artists, because one of the best female artists that I've worked have been in my early years of my early journey, and they were just supremely fantastic. You know, their sensitivity was far more than what the male counterpart would actually give. But sadly, at this point of time, that ratio is completely disbalanced. But having said so, as an individual, what I've been trying to do is I go to universities quite often, you know, IIT Kharagpur, various IITs, and there we have taken the onus of you know, offering internship. So we offer internship, and majority of the times we offer internship to women creators. And even though they might not have any 3D background, but it kind of gives them exposure to what filmmaking is all about. This is something that I'm wanting to do even at school level. So we are trying to reach out to schools and offer internship to young children at a younger age, where children with, you know, they're in school time and they get exposed to animation because they're far so excited all about it. And when this is exposed at an early age, I feel it will be far more impactful. So that is what we are trying to do.
That's a fantastic initiative, because it's all about catching them young and getting adopted towards creativity, right? Because it's not about learning from the textbooks. It's all about you know, experiential learning and teaching.
Experiential learning and teaching. And with COVID, unfortunately, we haven't been able to. So once this whole pandemic kind of slides down, we'll probably revive the whole internship again.
Great.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, we're almost coming to an end to a panel discussion, but I would, you know, I think with all your viewpoints and all your experiences, it just makes our belief that, you know, programs like the fellowship program or now the Women Creators program, which is more focused, there is a need to inspire and motivate more women creators to come and join an incubation program of, you know, learning virtual production, experimenting with it and making their own demos out of it, and, you know, then possibly start to make their own communities. Because I think at the end of all this, you know, all mentorship programs and all learning programs are good, but the ultimate goal has to be that we all form a community of creators together who can collaborate and also inspire more creators in the community to come together. So thank you so much for joining us. And with this, my dear audience, we also would be launching by tomorrow morning. All of you would also receive an email. We are accepting applications to the Women Creators Program, which will be a 4-week immersive program for women creators specifically, and do keep a lookout for that application. And if you would like to join and learn Unreal as well as learn the concepts of virtual production with our mentors, and work on a demo with a director mentor, this is the opportunity to experiment and unleash your creativity with technology. So thank you, everyone. But we'll open our floor for Q&A. I do see there some Q&A, a lot of questions in the the Q&A box. I'll start with the first one. Uh, this is by an anonymous attendee, and the question is for you, Charuvi. It's about, I believe a good lot of funds have gone into Hanuman. So I'm curious about whether you would recommend doing such a huge work at the early ages of your career.
Well, I feel it's all about taking a challenge. There's, of course, a lot of passion and work that has gone into creating Hanuman and the Legend of Hanuman. But it's all about taking risk. I mean, that's what I had to say to myself, that, let's take a risk, let's create a content which everybody loves and everybody cherishes, something that they would want to repeat and watch, something that they can connect to. So that was always the idea. So if I'm asked to create Hanuman again, I would probably do it, because there was just so much of learning and joy. And in the whole process, I became a follower of Hanuman himself. So yeah, definitely.
Awesome. And we have another question from Ronak Magu. Says, did you ever feel like your gender came in the way of people's perception of you as a leader in the workplace? This is for all of you. From microaggressions like using the word bossy rather than confident, or being called dear, to larger issues like having to constantly outdo your male counterparts to be taken seriously. Adding on to this, question for Vani and Charuvi. In the Indian context, I especially find most men feel a certain complex when being managed by a woman, especially a younger one. And I would love to know how you dealt with systematic patriarchy in the workplace. A huge thank you to all. It is especially encouraging seeing an all-woman panel as a young female producer. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's overwhelming to hear. That's really nice to hear. So basically, it's been a journey which has been very, very tedious. Interestingly, at this stage, I can probably crack a joke. Now I have a lot of gray hair. I have dyed recently, but this gray hair started helping me. So with every client meeting I go with my gray hair, it's impactful all of a sudden. But when, as a young girl, when I started out, it was a completely different ball game, because nobody would give you that kind of respect that you would wish to. Or, when you're starting up, I still remember when I started my studio, I was told that, this is not a woman's job. I think you are better off working for someone. When they came to know that I'm wanting to set up a studio. So I have been told a lot of things. In fact, sometimes my own staff in the initial starting years did not appreciate the fact that they had a woman boss, and that to a younger boss. So there was always a negative energy, even though, so I had to bring them to my cabin, be very respectful and talk to them. But then, when you are delivering a project, when you're working in an organization, all of us are equal. It doesn't matter what age group it is. It doesn't matter what gender it is. So that was something that I had to, kind of get into a dialogue and make them understand that, look, I'm an equal person. I only want one thing, which is the end goal. the end result, the end film. So let's work on it together. Let's be a team. So some of them, understood the whole, they understood what I was trying to say, and there are some who rebelled as well. The ones who rebelled are definitely not part of my organization anymore. So, but yeah, I do encounter that all the time. And it seems that, when you age more, it really helps. So now things have become better. Obviously, there's more portfolio in the organization, so that endorses to what you're doing. There's more credibility. But so now things are a bit different. But yeah, when I was starting out, it took me about 3 years to have a proper communication. Yeah.
Jackie, have you faced such challenges in your career?
Definitely. And I think I sort of alluded to it at one point, but sometimes there's a barrier that's hard to get over. And there's like very few, on-set supervisors or that sort of thing. And it's quite hard to get there. And so even though you might be able to become, a compositor or even maybe a compositing supervisor, it might be really hard to become a visual effects supervisor. Or so, there's definitely, and also when you start out, I think sometimes, you have to find someone who either a woman, like I found for myself, like a few women who are willing to take a chance on you, or sort of sympathetic men and who are willing to sort of mentor you, and I think there is something to prove in terms of you have to know what you're doing. Like it's like I was there till 3 a.m. read, they have the saying, it's like read the manual. Like I was there reading the manual until 3 a.m. so that, every night, when on my first job, so that I could do at least as well as everybody else, the job that they asked me to do. And that hard work paid off, but it's kind of, you have to be willing to roll up your sleeves, I think.
That's true. Marta, how about you? What's been your experience?
Hi. So my experience is that definitely there has been like difficulties in that sense. So I've been in projects where we were 60 people and I was the only girl there. So that's very intimidating as well when you go to meetings, when you work in the floor and all your supervisors are men or your leads. So breaking that and trying to make your way through this has been difficult. And also because a lot of times you start with a contract for 6 months. And in 6 months, you have to prove yourself. And in that context, it's not easy. So as Jackie said, you have to prove yourself, you have to work really hard, and you have to put the hours, and it's not easy. At the same time, as I said before, I think there's been starting to be a change on this and be more recognizing that workplaces to be diverse. So in that sense, it's a positive outcome at the moment, but still a lot to do. I know that.
Yeah. Vani, how about you? There was an Indian context in terms of Indian context.
Actually, I want to say that it's not just Indian, it's also all around the world.
Yeah.
Having worked in multiple locations internationally, there's a little bit of attitude change that has happened. And one of that is your own inner demons and your own cognitive problems. Us as women accepting the power within us is something that we don't know how to do. We're very easy to give away that power to someone else or play the victim of like, oh my God, this happened and why did this happen? And, stuff like that. I've been very fortunate to have some fantastic spiritual masters and teachers in my life. And every time I cried, one thing that they always told me was like, did anyone tell you life is going to be easy? And I said, no. And they said, maybe your parents might have told you that when you were in kindergarten, that it's going to be okay. But as you grow older, it's not. You have to constantly evolve and you have to constantly respect yourself. And a lot of my learning over the past, God knows how many years that I've been working, is finally accepting who I am. And I think that just makes it, then everything else is noise. And I think it's the same for men also. I mean, I've seen a lot of men suffer from the same problem, as much as I've seen women. Going back, if I rewind myself and do I say like, yes, was there a barrier? Yes. But did I accept the barrier? Yes. So it's a lot to do with my accepting and my not accepting it. And that's something that only comes in time. And so for anyone that's listening, I just want to say that know what your strengths are and just focus on that. And just really empower yourself, because nobody else is going to do that. You have to be your best friend. You have to be your best, like it's a lot of self-realization in terms of the negative talk that we talk to ourselves is so much that we put that negative talk from outside and we multiply it. So I think, are there barriers today? Yes. But how much of that am I building myself? So I think equally the participation happens from both ways. So I don't want to put the blame on anybody out there. The second thing that I also learned was people pleasers. I think, I don't want to generalize it, but there's a lot to do with us as Indian women. I think it's also universal to some extent, but we're constantly trying to please people around us. We want everybody to be happy because that's what we see, like our role models have either been our grandmothers, our mothers, our aunts, or our nephew, like other women that are always trying to keep everyone happy and everybody together. And I think that's something that we take into our professional life and try to imitate that. And so we lose ourselves when we try to please others. So whoever asked this question, my point is, A, it's not going to be easy. B, empower yourself. People will say what they want to say, whether you're young, whether you are old, whether you're whoever, dark, light, it really doesn't matter. Just keep going at it. I mean, keep just going at it, and don't worry about what they're going through, because you're going through a lot yourself. So that's basically my learning over the many years. I was always scared to give myself the freedom to call myself the creator. It was always it was so easy not to call myself that. Or to call myself the head of the studio. So it's like, yeah, I'm not the head of the studio, So it was always like that. And I was like, hold on, why not? I mean, you are the head of the studio, acknowledge it. You are a creator, acknowledge it. So it has a lot to do with your cognitive. So there are these 11 cognitive biases. Everybody, please go and read up. We all suffer and live in them. But once you know that, I think strength, like that inner strength just shines and radiates, and nobody can come in your way.
Yes, on that inspiring note, I think we would, would like to end this panel discussion. Thank you so much again for joining us and sharing your viewpoints on how you look at creativity, your journey so far, and your perceptions about being women in leadership roles in the industry. And we certainly need more of those women coming up, and we become that inspiration and those mentors for all the women out there who can who just have to now just think about creativity and start creating more beautiful content. So on that note, I hand over the stage back to Shiva. Shiva, thank you so much.
Hello, Shruti, and all the respected panel members. It was a very, very inspiring and lovely session. And we see a lot of messages from our attendees. They have been enjoying the session. Thank you very much. And I would like to take this opportunity and thank all our Asifa India core committee members, volunteers, and supporters who are really helping us to make this thing possible. And we also would like to express our thanks and gratitude to Epic Unreal for, and especially Shruti for having this lovely opportunity. And this is just a beginning of a like bigger things. We really wanted to have a follow through and see to that we make a good positive difference in the near future. And we would request everyone to join us and like us on Facebook and follow all our updates. We do conduct many different webinars and like workshops at different times.
I just wanted to add one thing to all the wonderful people out there. If you're a female, come and be a part of the Women Creators Program. If you're a male, there are more programs that'll come up for you. But for the men that are out there, I personally beg you to recommend one of your colleagues, your sister, your girlfriend, anyone, your colleague, your boss, your subordinate, it doesn't matter, your teacher, anyone that you think needs this opportunity. I want men to be ambassadors and promote women and support women, which I think you all are. So thank you for even coming in and attending this. So pass it on and pass on the love and bring it on.
Thank you, Vani. And we're sorry we couldn't really play all the videos earlier. So what we'll do is we'll share all the links to our respective like panelists here in the chat window. Please do watch them and enjoy. Yeah. Thank you very much. Shruti, would you like to say anything?
No, I think it's all good. I've spoken quite a lot throughout the time, but thank you, Shiva, thank you, Asifa, for being our partners for this program, and we'll see you soon.
So someone asked a question, can you send the Women Creator Program?
Yes,
So,
you will receive an email from us with the form and the details of the program by tomorrow, that as well. Asifa would be sharing that.
sure.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. Thank you, Jackie, for joining in
Thank
early.
you.
Thank you, Marta and Charuvi.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much.